Hey, welcome back to Wednesday Wisdom. I'm super excited that you watch these little moments of encouragement because, as an encourager, when it actually lands on someone and encourages them, um, it encourages me. So, encouragement is kind of this cyclical thing that goes around from me to you and back to me. And so, I'm super excited that you took the time to just stop and listen for a minute because I want to tell you a story today and just encourage you with a quick word about when you are in the middle of suffering. And this story actually takes place way back in northern New York, about 15 years ago. And I was in a barn out in the country. I had a bunch of my stuff stored in a friend's barn, and I was super grateful for it. Everything was in like cardboard boxes and plastic tubs and just stacked all up there. And I went out one day to check on it because it was raining. It was like pouring down rain, like the heavens were ripping open, thunder, the whole 9 yards. And so it kind of started while I was in the barn. There was a gap in the rain. And so I'm in the barn and I'm looking around and I'm watching my cardboard boxes like collapse in the middle because of the moisture and the exposure to the elements. And so I'm standing in this barn and I just was in a really tough place. I was crying out on a regular basis, months and months and months. I think this whole span of time was about 2 years long. And this was pretty close to the end of it. And I was just crying out for the Lord. And I wasn't feeling like he was hearing me. Actually, what I would have told you in the time was I felt like he was on the other side of the world doing tsunami relief work because there had been this huge tsunami in India, I think. And it was devastating. Maybe you remember it. And I felt like the Lord had forgotten about me and was doing tsunami relief work on the other side of the world. How many of you have felt like the Lord has just forgotten about you, that your problems aren't as important and he's off somewhere else fixing somebody else's problems who most likely are more important than yours or just as important as yours? So in the middle of all this, I am crying out, and it got so bad that particular day. As harder it rained, the more the thunder clapped and shook, the more I cried out. And I found myself crying out, just take me home, because I can't do this anymore. I can't do this. You're not showing up. I'm like out here on my own. I'm so overwhelmed with the circumstances of my life. I can't do it anymore. And I was demanding that God had taken me home. Have you ever done that? Yeah. How'd that work out for you? Because it didn't work out for me. I'm still here 15 years later. And what I learned in that day and what I've learned and experienced since is that there is my reality and then there's God's reality. And I have a choice in those difficult moments of suffering, which reality I want to walk in. Now, I want to read you a couple of verses out of Psalm 22. And as usual, you guessed it, Passion Translation. So in Psalm 22, David's singing this song of anguish. And he starts out, my God, why have you abandoned me now? Why do you remain distant, refusing to answer my tearful cries in the day and my desperate cries for your help in the night? Now, haven't we been there with those desperate cries in the night and those tearful cries during the day? He says, I can't stop sobbing. Where are you, God? And so often when we're in the middle of suffering, like that's our question, like, where are you, God? And that's a really good question because the next verse, David goes on to say, yet I know. And what I've learned since that day of my major meltdown in the barn in the country in central New York State is that what I have to do in those moments of suffering is not go with my anguish and my feelings, but go with what I know. And what I know is God is never doing tsunami relief work on the other side of the world. He's always right here. There's another scripture in Psalms that says he is always working for our cause. He's always on our side. He's always defending us. And so in the middle of our suffering, when it's the hardest to find hope, we have to go with what we know and not what we feel, because the bigger reality is that there is a reality beyond this physical stuff that we live in. That's only a portion of our reality. I've been listening to these people recently talk about like 450 trillion bytes of data come at us constantly. And so we have our five senses where we take in about 200,000 bytes of data through what we see, we hear, we smell, we taste, we touch. But then there's our sixth sense, there's our spirit, because we're body, soul, and spirit. And our sixth sense has access to this other stuff that's going on around us. And that is where faith lives. That's where we can take a step out of our emotions and get into our mind and say, no, yet I know, yet I know. And you can see this same theme all through the Psalms of the pain and the suffering and the anguish and the emotional distress. And then the decision to say, okay, but yet I know that you are most holy. It is indisputable. I know you are God enthroned, surrounded with songs, living among the shouts and praises of your priestly people. Our fathers' faith was with you, and every generation they trusted and believed, and you came through. So he has historical evidence. And we have that evidence in our lives. If you've lived long enough, if you've lived through enough storms, then you know that God always comes through. And then he finishes up this psalm. Every time they cried out to you in their despair, you were faithful to deliver them. You never disappointed them. And I just want to encourage you today that if you are in some suffering, if you're going through a life storm, I've gone through pretty much most of the common ones. If you've heard my testimony, you know that it's a pretty sad story. But what I've learned, especially after the sum total of everything that I've lived so far, and I still have hopefully years left to live, is that God is faithful and he always comes through. So I need to get out of my emotions, because my emotions, my feelings are actually influencing my physical body. And I'll probably unpack that in another day, because that's just so super powerful. But we don't want to be growing that fear and that stress and that anxiety in our emotions, because it has a physical effect on our body. But instead, go to what we know. Yet I know. And this is what I dare you to do. I double dog dare you. You let me know if you take me up on this. Get a piece of paper, get an index card, and write on it, yet I know. And carry it with you. Put it on your bathroom mirror. Put it on your refrigerator. Put it wherever you're going to see it throughout the day. Put it on your phone. Set a reminder on your phone that says, yet I know. Yet I know that God is faithful, that he is working on my behalf. He is championing my causes. And let him come through for you in the way that he longs to, because at the end of the day and all day long, he is a good God and he loves you. He loves you. He loves you. He loves you, especially in the midst of your suffering. And he wants you to, yet I know that he is there for you. So I love you. Have a great day. Have a great Wednesday, or whatever day you're watching this. Continue to reach out to me and let me know how this is encouraging you, because it encourages me. And together we'll just change our worlds. Have a great day.